In today's episode, we're speaking to Maz Dela Cerna. Maz Dela Cerna is a best-selling author, breathwork facilitator, a reiki master, energy healer, and a coach. She wasn't always doing these things. She had to overcome many obstacles such as homelessness, childhood traumas, abuse, addictions, eating disorders, depression, and the biggest battle of all, herself. Let's speak to Maz Dela Cerna and find out how she changed her life by changing her mindset. Let's find out. And remember, if you want to upgrade your money mindset, then click on the link www.millionairefoundations.com and watch my free training. Welcome. This is Gull, your money mindset expert. And today we have Maz Dela Cerna with us. Welcome, Maz.
Thanks so much for having me today.
It's such a pleasure to have you, Maz. Maz, everyone's heard your intro. They know how fabulous you are. But please, in your own words, tell everybody what it is that you do.
I am an author, energy healer, and breathwork facilitator and coach. And basically what I do is I help people heal from their past, release subconscious blocks and self-limiting beliefs so they can transform their lives and become manifesting magnets.
Wonderful. So, Maz, talk us through your own personal journey. Obviously, nobody wakes up one day and decides to become an energy healer. That's, me talking from experience. So what has been your journey? What has led you to this point to become an energy healer and to help people in the way that you do?
Well, basically a lot of trauma, as most healers.
Yeah, of course. Yes. That's why I asked.
Yeah, I'm the founder of the Phoenix Rising Collective, and I guess Phoenix Rising says it all. I was born in the Philippines in poverty, so third world country. In my teens, I found myself living in the streets, ex-drug addict, alcoholic, a lot of depression, anxiety, a lot of trauma, rape, childhood abuse, and even a string of toxic abusive relationships. And basically any type of trauma almost that you can think of, I've experienced. And I guess that's why I am really good at helping people now. And it's where my passions stem from, to be able to help others, because I just didn't want to see others struggle in the way that I did. And if I could help someone shorten that healing journey, because everyone needs to go through healing, but make that easier and help guide people, that's literally how, like, my passion, that's where it all stems from, basically, the hardships.
Okay, so there's a lot in there. Thank you for sharing so candidly. There's a lot in here. Let's unpack it. So you were born in Philippines, and then how did you end up in Australia? Because currently you're in Australia. So can you talk us through your journey?
Yes. So I came to Australia when I was about 4 years old. My mum married my stepdad, and so left my real father in the Philippines. Luckily now, fast forward, he is now in Australia, but separated from my father and came to Australia, which was scary as a 4-year-old. I was actually really switched on then, but a whole new country, couldn't speak the language. Everyone was white, so a lot of racism, and grew up there. And then 14, I was on the streets, and it isn't the typical story of why a teenager would find themselves on the streets, because I was straight A's, the quietest, most timid, like such a good girl, very shy. And it was basically because at 14, I wanted to meet my real dad, who was still in the Philippines. And my stepdad then said, well, I'll pay for your flight, but that means you don't have a home here. And I agreed, but I didn't actually believe it. But then I didn't have a home. So I found myself in the streets in Cairns, and
you flew out to the Philippines to meet your father. And what happened with that?
When I met my father, it was nice to meet him, because all I remember was being daddy's little girl and getting to know him, getting to know him again. But it wasn't what I had expected or hoped for, should I say. And I was actually really quite let down. We're close now, but at that time, and I think for him, because he'd only seen me as a little girl, and we had spoke about it, like was used to showing affection through touch and physical touch. He used to always cuddle me, but now I was like a grown woman. He didn't know how to be around me. And yeah, it wasn't what I expected. So I was really let down with that. And then when I came back to Australia to find my stepdad really actually meant that, yeah,
What
like
did your
that
mother
was
say?
this.
What did your mother say for that?
My mother took his side. So for many years after that, I didn't speak to her at all.
Right.
I really resented her. I had so much anger towards her. And we, again, now in the future, we have spoken about that. But at the time, she basically took it out on me of like, I'm just like my father and everything else. And I think that was her way of making herself feel better because of how much she actually felt guilty about the situation. Because she
Mm.
had four boys. I have four half brothers with my stepdad, from my stepdad. And so in her mind, she felt like she had to choose between the four boys or me. Where
Mm.
in my mind, I was like, that there isn't even a choice.
Yeah.
You don't make that a choice. That there's no, it's your children. So I felt, I guess the abandonment issues stem from there.
Mm. Okay. So so you go to meet your father and you come back and you don't have a home anymore. Then what happens?
I was sent to, well, I was in Cairns when I was homeless. And I was the kind of girl, I had a lot of pride. I didn't want anyone to know I was homeless because I didn't want to be treated like a street rat. You know how people just don't treat homeless people very nice, and I didn't want to be treated that way, especially after already experienced being treated differently because a white, like in a white area with an Asian, the only Asian there. So I never told anyone I was homeless, and I became very good at shoplifting. I would actually steal clothes from Supre. It was my favorite store. So I dress nice. And I would steal food from like we have Woolworths here, like a grocery store, just like chips and chocolate and just things that was easy to steal so I could eat. Um, and no one knew I was homeless because I looked good, and I would shower because on the Esplanade there was public showers because there's a beach there. And so I would shower. So I was not a stinky homeless person. No one knew.
Where would you sleep?
On the street bench, on the park bench. And then I
For how
remember
long?
this happened for about a few months.
For a
I
few
was on the
months you were on
streets.
the streets and no
Yeah,
one knew about it?
no one knew about it.
Help me to understand this. I'm a mother, okay, and I
Yeah.
have a 16-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son. And boy, do I get angry at her at times. Like, okay, you're leaving this house and da da da. I'm gonna send it to your father and blah 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 blah. And they're bloody empty threats. Of course they are. I'm not gonna do anything with my daughter. It's you know, and it's not, and these are not general conversations either. It's just extreme
Yeah.
situations when you know you have those altercations with your teenage child, and you're like, who's the battle of the wits? Who's gonna back down first? And it's like, oh, it's not me. It's not me. Whatever. That's when those threats come out. But they were empty threats. She knows it. I know it. It's just that. Okay. And my biggest threat is I'm gonna send you to your dad. That's my biggest threat, right? Not on the street. So I'm having a difficult time understanding how not your stepdad, but your mom allowed you to go leave the house and live on the street and did not know where you were. I just don't understand how did she deal with that? So explain this to me. You know, how long, and did she know you were on the streets or whatever? Just unpack that for me, because I'm just having a difficult time digesting it, being a parent myself and knowing that, you know, my daughter's not home in time, and I'm like panicking and going to, whatever.
Yeah.
So
To be honest, Gull, I didn't understand, and I still don't fully understand what happened there. There was many years I didn't talk to her. I had so much anger towards her. I hated her. I was so resentful because I felt abandoned, and I felt like, how could you just leave me and not care about me? And how, like, literally it's put me like, around that time as well, I remember being, because I get caught up with the other homeless people and being so drunk, and I never drank, but I was like, literally there was nothing more to life at that time. That's what I thought. I had no future. That was me done, at 14. And I remember being so drunk, I'd cross highways and purposely not look because I would hope a car would hit me and then be disappointed when I made it to the other side. And
Wow.
it wasn't like I tried to jump in front of a car, but I was like hoping that because the cars were all going. I remember just being in such a dark place, and I still don't fully understand that. We have spoke about it, but my mother is still one of those people that doesn't like to look at the past too much. She's always about moving forward, suppresses all this stuff, which I guess explains a lot of her physical ailment she has now. But yeah, I can't really explain from her side exactly what went on there. I know on my side, she was just angry with me. When I did come back near her, I would end up staying with a friend's mum who worked at the school. And she kind of got stuck with me because she didn't know I was homeless. And my girlfriend actually asked her, we were at the park, and then she's like, where are you going to go now? I'm like, I guess I'll just stay here and sleep here. And then she was like, no, I can't let that. She's like, you can stay at my house. And I remember her asking her mum if I could stay over, and her mum was like, no. But then I heard my friend Jess then whisper to her mum, but I could hear it being like, no, she really needs someone to stay. She's going to stay at the park. And her mum ended up letting me stay that night, and then was stuck with me. And I mean, stuck for months, because when she went to take me home, realized I wasn't welcome at home and didn't have the heart to just throw me on the streets again. And so she ended up taking me on for months. I can't even quite remember how long that was, but I know it was months. And I always felt like a burden there because I knew I wasn't wanted there. She just felt obliged to have me there, and I could see it and I could feel it. So,
But didn't the social services get involved, and somebody else? Surely somebody.
they, yeah, well, child services over here did get involved. And this is a messed up thing as well. Like, because I had no clothes, I had nothing. And my friend's mum, because she worked at the school, decided to get them involved to see if something could happen and whatnot, because she put me back through school. And then when child services turned up at my stepdad's mum's house, all my stuff was there, and they said, no, she still lives here, look, all her stuff's there. And I still, to this day, I do not understand how they just took their word and believed that, because my friend's mum and her family, like, she is staying here. Like, but I guess, I don't know, back in those days, they didn't really care, I guess, or really take things further, because my parents just said, no, she still lives here. It was literally like that. It was really hard. And it was hard for my friend's mother as well. I'm really grateful for her now, but like I do understand, when you're stuck with someone's kid that you didn't choose to take on, but you don't have the heart to put them on the streets or anything.
Wow. Okay, that just doesn't. I'm in the UK, so if I was younger, or if I was on the streets, I know social services would pick me up and say, okay. And then my parents even say, even if my mom had said, God forbid, she would never do that, but if my mom did the same thing and said, look, her clothes are here, she's living here, they will say, no, she's been living at XYZ's house for those 3 nights, blah, blah, blah. So there's evidence for it. And you don't just take the parents, the parent in question, and say, look, okay, fine. And just because her clothes are here doesn't mean she's living here, because she's physically been living elsewhere. And if things do not work out, the well-being of the child is of paramount importance, more than the actual the parent at the time. So
I agree. I don't understand. I actually, you've just made me remember there was a night where me and my friend's mom and her, like, my friend, we went to a friend's house that was living across the road from my parents' house. And one night I actually broke into the house to steal some clothes, and they were like waiting at my friend's house for me. I completely forgot about that. But yeah, you've just reminded me
why were they waiting at your friend's house to take the clothes back, or to tell you off?
No. We went to my friend's house who lived across the road from my parents, right? And they all waited for me. So my friend's mom, If we're going to give names, it makes it easier when I keep saying friends. But Tracy is my friend's mum. Jess was my friend. And so Tracy and Jess waited across the road at our friend's place, and I snuck in. It was nighttime, and I snuck into my parents' house, broke in, so I could steal clothes, my own clothes.
They didn't give you clothes when they told you to leave. They just told you to leave that as is. No clothes on your back or nothing.
No. And even Tracy tried to get what we have here is Centrelink. So our form of the doll tried to get money from Centrelink for me, right? And couldn't. So I am very grateful for Tracy, because I know she even bought me clothes and stuff because I needed things, and she helped me through a period there. But I guess that's what then led me into my first abusive relationship, because as soon as I got a boyfriend, and though he was not good for me, I felt really bad staying at Tracy's house. And it was like my way of getting out of a situation where I felt like a burden. And then I stayed way too long. I think it was 4 or 5 years in my first relationship that was not exactly healthy. And that was the start of a string of a lot of toxic, abusive relationships.
Wow. Okay. And then, so this is so much to unpack. And then, how did you complete your studies, and how did you move forward?
No, I only officially finished grade 8,
Mm.
which is sad, because I was actually a straight A student. I was like grade 2, grade 3, getting sent into a special, like, they would pull me out of class and teach me other things because I was doing things at grade 7, grade 8 level. Like, I was super smart. But also not a waste, because I'm using my talents elsewhere now.
Of course.
But at that time, yeah, grade 8 was the only year I officially finished. When I was with Tracy, and because she worked at the school, I was back at school through a bit of halfway through grade 9, but I didn't do full grade 9. I tried to do grade 10, and then that was, yeah. And I end up just leaving and not being at school and just working, because I had adult bills to pay. I was paying rent. I was doing things as an adult, and paying normal rent and doing all of that as a child. And so I ended up dropping out of school and working 3 part-time jobs so I could pay my way, which barely, at the time then, the wages were so low, especially at my age, barely made ends meet. So life had always been a struggle for me financially.
Wow. Okay. So that's the background we're working with. Then how did you break free from it? How did you change your mindset? Because the tagline for this is how you change your life by changing your mindset. How did you get out of that victim mentality and break from those old patterns of self-destruction?
Oh, very, yeah, there's a lot. I couldn't even tell my life story in one episode, I don't think. My life should really be a movie. But in saying that, it was a lot of rock bottoms. It wasn't like a one-time rock bottom or one moment that hit me. It was experiencing, again, like when I went through that first toxic relationship, and then I went through lots of toxic relationships, and then went into drugs and became a drug addict, became an alcoholic. I went into very dark times around very dark people, and it was life giving me a lot of rock bottoms, until one day I was forced to just wake up. And I think the starting point of that was around 2012, 2014, around there. And 2014, actually, I was in a relationship. It was a very bad breakup, where in the end, he had taken all of my belongings, so all my clothes, everything, um, trashed the apartment, took all my money, the fridge, which it was full of food. He turned the fridge off. Literally, just I was left with completely nothing, and I couldn't even go to work because I had no clothes and I had no money to buy clothes. So I couldn't even like leave the apartment. And I remember being on my balcony wanting to commit suicide, like just being crazy. I was drinking cheap wine. Back then you could buy like $2, $3 bottles of wine. And I remember drinking very cheap wine, getting myself super drunk, crying and just laughing. I end up like being hysterical and just end up laughing at myself because I'm like, how did I get from 14 and homeless to with nothing to all these years have gone by and I've worked so hard to get out of that. And now here I am with an apartment that I can't pay for. And I'm back with nothing again, but I have a roof over my head that I can't pay for. And I just thought it was hilarious and thought, how can life be so cruel? And I remember wanting to jump off that balcony. Uh, and the funny thing is, an orb had come and distracted me, scared the crap out of me, and made me run back inside. But now I know, like, I was obviously divinely so protected, and it was not my time. There were bigger things for me to do in the future. But at that time, like, I was standing and looking the balcony, but it was only 8 stories high. And I was like, yeah, it's not high enough. What if I survive this? If I survive this, I don't want to live as a quadriplegic, you know, and be disabled. But I really wanted to end my life. And yeah, that orb came and saved. And I like just in the word saved, it scared me. It distracted me from what I was wanting to do. And from the next morning, I just remember feeling completely different. And I was like, no, I'm never going to allow another person ever make me feel like this again, ever. And I just made this promise. I'm never going to let anyone have that power over me ever again. And that was the start of my personal development journey. Push me into spirituality, you know, because when you're at rock bottoms, you're asking for divine help, you're asking for assistance, you're like,
Yeah.
please. And that was what, you know, my strengthening my connection with my guides and source and God, and, you know, all of strengthening my belief, and found Tony Robbins. He was the start of my personal development journey, you know, and started learning how to be a better me and think differently, feel differently about myself. And I guess that was the start of that. But through that journey, I would say I'd created my vision board then. It took me 7 years to get it. In those 7 years, I still went through a lot of slaps in the face and rock bottoms and a lot of tests before I actually really got it and woke up. Yeah, it was a long, dark night of the soul. And yeah, in the 7 years later, I got my first vision board. It all became reality. Everything fully clicked for me, where I started helping and teaching others. And my next vision board, I was able to bring in within a year, you know, because it finally clicked. But I guess that 7 year journey was just a lot of trial and error, a lot of mistakes, a lot of not listening to my intuition, not following what I knew was right. And yeah, but there was a lot of trials and tribulations in that time as well. But I guess it's what just choosing to not allow anything outside of yourself determine how you feel,
Yeah.
and just choosing to take your power back. And it was, yeah, I guess that was the moment for me where it was like, no, I have control, and I'm only going to allow myself to have that control,
Yeah.
regardless of what happens outside of me.
So that's how did you find, because I'm glad you said that, because that's something similar happened to me when I, at the age of, for me, was a lot younger, at the age of 19, 20, I was looking for a book by Tony Buzan on speed reading, on mind mapping, and I found a book by Tony Robbins, and it led me down the rabbit hole of personal development, and I have been there
Yeah.
ever since. So, how did you find the book, and how long before you turned your life around? Because that's that, I think essentially, when you first come across personal development, it's all about the mindset, but eventually if you go into deeper, and especially if you're spiritual, you realize it's more to do with the energy, and you naturally pull towards the energy healing and changing energy and working through your trauma as part side of it. But that comes naturally if you are a spiritual person. So excuse me. So how did you find the book, first of all? Because the universe has a way of giving the book to you. And then how did you make the transformation?
I remember when that time after the balcony incident of almost trying to end my life. And that was when I was just asking and asking and praying and calling for help. And I didn't even know who, because at the time I didn't believe in God. I didn't believe in spirit. I didn't believe in guides. I didn't know who or what to believe in, but I was begging for help. Something, someone out there, freaking help me, because this is not how life is supposed to be. And as always, once you ask for help, they help.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
Always.
never one to tell anyone who or what to believe in, whether it's God or Allah or spirit or angels or, you know, whoever anyone wants to
Yeah.
believe in. But
Whatever,
that
it's your
higher
personal
power,
choice. Yeah. Yeah. Higher power and
yeah.
just personal choice. Yeah. And at the end, these are
Mm-hmm.
most of the time, these are just labels anyway. So if you go
Mm-hmm.
outside of that, believe in a higher power that can support you and is willing to support you, that's the most important concept, I think.
Mm-hmm. And when I asked for that help, the right things, I don't even know. It was just like the angel numbers started, and I didn't even know what an angel number was, but it was getting so profound that I was like, this is weird. What is happening? And then I remember Googling, and then that's when I found out what an angel number is. And I was like, oh my God, there's messages. And then, I remember the secret, and then watching all these like just things. And I wasn't really searching, just things would appear in front of me, or just I can't even, it was just not one thing. It was a string of a lot of things, and none that I was searching for, but it was being placed in front of me. And I just kept following and picking up what they were putting down. um, and went on that big journey. And the transition, I guess, because after that relationship, I was single for 5 years. I was on my healing journey. I was on my personal development journey. I went from an overweight party girl, and then that's when I stepped into competing, and I ended up becoming a sponsored bikini athlete.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it all started from like the physical personal development, that kind of level. And as you said, as the journey progresses, you go deeper and
Yeah.
deeper, and you realize there's more and there's more layers. So yeah, it started on a physical transformation where I lost 30 kilos, got myself on stage and on my favorite magazine, fitness magazine, and all of that. And that's how I thought, because I always felt a pull to help people, but that's how I first started in inspiring people through weight loss and helping myself in the process. And then that then turned into blogging and writing inspirational, articles for really massive publications. And then I found myself in another relationship, and that's the relationship my book, I Deserve Better, was actually born. That's a book all about toxic relationships. And after 5 years being single and then coming into that relationship, and it was another toxic relationship. And
Oh.
I was like, how? How? Because it was so magical and obviously very karmic. Like I was meant to meet him, because after we broke up and I fully ended it with him, my gifts started to activate, and I went through another spiritual awakening, but a very much a very profound one where, yeah, I started seeing things, feeling things, hearing things, like just, yeah, it was unexplainable. But it was that relationship that triggered me to go further into healing, because I'm like, how can I've spent 5 years healing to find myself with the same person in a different body again? Like, this just does not make sense. And then when my gifts started activating in that time, because again, at that point, I was already connecting with my guides, I was connecting with spirit. I already had that connection, and that just got stronger after that breakup. They were really there to help guide me. And then my book was born, and I don't know, everything kind of plays out as it does, all the synchronicities, the signs, the pulls. And every time they told me to jump, I would jump. That's literally it. Everything, like every download I get, I have kept that promise. So yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So on that note, I'm going to wrap this up. What would be your parting comments to someone, Maz? Someone who may be in a toxic relationship or in the dark at the moment, is having a dark night of the soul, as you refer to it. What would your advice be to that person who's going through this transformation? I call it transformation because when you are going through the darkness, you are actually, there's an old saying that when you are in the darkness, you're actually being planted, because seeds are planted in the darkness. So when you are dark, everything around you is dark, you feel like you're suffocating, actually you're not. That's when you're germinating. That's when you're growing from the inside out and you're transforming. What advice would you have for them?
If your soul is feeling that pull where there's something better, it is absolutely spot on. And it's so, so right. And that is a light that is leading you out of that dark. And again, just like me, We all have a choice. We don't give ourselves enough credit for the power that we have. We have a choice to stay in certain situations, and we can choose not to. And if you choose not to, because you know in your soul that wherever you are at now is not where you're supposed to be, you will be guided, you will be protected every single time. So just blind faith, blind trust, but follow the pull that your soul is already telling you, because it always knows the way.
Wonderful, wonderful. So tell us, Maz, how can we connect with you? Where can you find you on the internet?
On mazdelacerna.com, or my Instagram's my main social at Little Miss Maz. Well, LIL Miss Maz, Little Miss Maz. And I have a YouTube channel, Phoenix Rising Collective.
Wonderful. So if you are listening to us on the podcast, the links for Maz will be in the show notes. And if you're watching on YouTube, then down below, then in the description section, we'll have all the links that Maz just mentioned. Do check her out and see how she can help you build a better future. Thank you so much for coming, Maz, today. It's been a fantastic conversation. It's been, wow, a heavy conversation, I would say, because there's been so much to unpack in this. But we would love to have you on Money Talkies and learn more from your experience. But for today, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
And thank you for listening to me and Maz today. I will be back with, my gosh, another amazing, amazing, amazing guest, finding out how they changed their life by changing their mindset. Until the next time, this is Gull signing off. Take care and bye for now.